we'll go into, and this is a hot button topic, and I love poking fun at this, and I love getting people fired up about this. So we're going to talk about the myth of injury prevention. And so we look at the BPS side and we say, well, there's a lot of things that spill into injury and can cause injury, so what is everything I can do to prevent injury? And I am here, my belief is to tell you there's nothing you can do to prevent injury because there's no such thing. And I think it would be best if we just cut right there and just walked out. You don't get any help, and now you're stuck thinking there's nothing you can do. But since my boss would probably not be too pleased with that, Blake, fill us in on, give the people what they want. Fill us in on the myth of injury prevention, and then kind of, perk us back up here a little bit.
So don't get too down. There are plenty of things you can do to mitigate the risk of injury. Strengthening your knees, your ankles, doing stuff with your joints, recovering properly, eating and drinking the right things, all that stuff that we've been talking about. But unfortunately, like most things in life, risk will never be zero. You can't just make injuries go away. They're an unfortunate part of what we signed up for as athletes, and they happen to everybody. Like you see Kobe Bryant, that was a perfect example. You can guarantee that man did everything right, and still something happened. It's just how it goes. It's sports, and it's being able to then shift your mentality to how do we fix this and how do we get back to being what I was before.
If you didn't catch that, there's no such thing as injury prevention, but we can have injury mitigation, or reducing the likelihood that you're going to get hurt. And I think more importantly, and maybe for those of us who have been told for years and years and years, you're doing some type of injury prevention training, and now all of a sudden we just rocked your world and you're feeling all down. Treat strength training as the understanding of not just an if, but a when you get hurt or a when you get injured. The strength training is helping your recovery time go down and getting you back to what you want to do faster. And so I think what Blake is saying is very important for us to understand. Is I think sometimes we get so sucked in to, I have to do this specific thing to prevent injury. And folks, I'm here to tell you, if that was the case, every single athlete would be on the same routine. We would know X exercise leads to a 0% chance of knee injury. But we have to understand movement is dynamic. There's a lot going on. It's ever changing, and that's what sport is. So I hope this isn't making you feel down. I hope it's encouraging you to take your training from a broader perspective and understand that it's not just injury prevention, it's just getting you stronger, it's making you more resilient. Let's use football as an example here. What are you doing with your football guys who are getting ready to head into their season in terms of, we'll stay injury and recovery focused here. What are some things that you and the staff at Lancaster are doing in order to make sure that you're keeping these kids as robust as possible as they head into a very hard season?
Yeah, so we're tapering their workouts and not making them less of what they normally are, but like a little bit less intense, because they have to be, because it goes back to that overtraining thing that we talked about earlier, which is really increases your risk of getting hurt. We know they're playing now. We know they're on the field most of the time. So we just kind of focus on more recovery stuff, more just getting back into the rhythm of being an athlete and being on that field constantly. And it's not just like, okay, man, like I know you guys are gonna be squatting a lot when you get back, so we're just gonna go heavy with the squats right now, because that's not the key. It's just, like I said, bringing them back a little bit, taking them a little bit more of a relaxed approach towards their training, and just kind of making sure their body's in tune and ready to take all that stuff they're going to be doing in the season.
And how would you take this approach differently for an individual who is Joe Schmo, who's Gen Pop, mom and dad, who is just in the gym just to be healthy? Are you guys implementing any type of methods for folks who aren't involved in athletics, or would you say that the way you're adjusting programming as it relates to recovery is only necessary for athletes?
Absolutely not. And it always varies from person to person. what we really focus on, especially with Gen Pop people that come into our facility, is just making sure that their basics and their fundamentals are as solid as possible. Because I believe that obviously a solid foundation makes everything that you build on top of it a million times stronger. So we need to make sure their core lifts are right, their body control mechanics are right before we start progressing them to those more difficult things. And I feel like, obviously, like we said, you're never going to get rid of the wrist completely, but it does help if they learn to deadlift and hang clean properly. If they don't do it properly, we're not just throwing a bunch of weight on the bar and like, all right, go, let's see how strong you are, because that's not what it is. The end goal isn't to get all of our clients as jacked as possible. It's to get everybody living the healthiest lifestyle and staying healthy for as long as they can.
Yeah, I think first off, that's spot on. And if you're listening to what Blake's saying, nowhere is he saying A leads to B. Nowhere is he saying you have to implement these exact things into your workout program. Instead, let's take a step back and let's start asking ourselves a little bit of a deeper approach to our training program. And so here's typically what happens: is an individual they go in, they're going through their training program, and all of a sudden they start to get an ache or a pain, or worst case scenario, they're injured, and we immediately draw conclusions to a specific something. Humans don't like to not know. We have to have a reason for things, and so my low back starts to hurt. I immediately say, it must be deadlifting. It must be hang power cleaning. When instead, first and foremost, we just can't actually prove that. Instead, take a step back and start asking yourself bigger questions. Am I doing too much? This might be weight. This might be the amount of volume you're doing. This might be the intensity at which you're trying to do it. Am I spending too much time in a certain area and not enough in another area? Am I fill in the blank? And so it's not just one thing. Hey, look at that. We're kind of spilling everything back into the BPS model, and we did that organically. See, this is true life stuff happening in front of you. And I lost my train of thought. But as you guys can see, stop picking on one issue and start looking at it from a more holistic approach. Two things will happen. Number one is you're going to be less panicky about things. And number two, I would be willing to bet that you're going to start to recover from these little hiccups, these little aches and pains, because you're not so hyper-focused on what's going on.